Okay, well, this is a lot to put together here, but I appreciate everybody coming on. We have really the sort of the cornerstone of Lansing market on public policy and governmental affairs. We have Deidre Wilson from McLaren, Vice President of McLaren, 20 years. Brandy Johnson, who I've known for a while, is the head of president of MCCA, which is an acronym, of course, and almost every business now we all have acronyms, but you're basically head of the Association of Community Colleges, right? Michigan Association. We have Lindsay Palsrok, who was a longtime governmental affairs for the Business Leaders of Michigan.
And Detroit Chamber.
And the Detroit Chamber before that, right? Yeah. And Sarah Hubbard, who's a lot of things, including, you call yourself a multi-client lobbyist?
Yeah, multi-client lobbyist with Acuitas.
Right.
Yeah, and before that with the Detroit Regional Chamber too. So Lindsay and I share a little background there.
And you all obviously knew each other before coming on, and Lindsay was the one that sort of put this together, and so it's...
You're welcome.
It's
You're
just
Thanks, Lindsay.
it's interesting, but you're
Bring us all
also
together.
an elected official on the Regent of the University of Michigan. I have a hard time saying that, actually.
Go
It's
blue.
like it doesn't roll
Can I
right
get a
off
go
your-
blue? Come
Go
on.
blue.
Can I get a go blue, everybody?
Yeah. But everybody here is well educated, which is, probably, I don't know if that's the standard or not as far as being in downtown Lansing at the Capitol, but to have,
That's our standard.
Yeah.
yeah.
I stand.
Deidre, you have a master's in
Public health
from
the University of Michigan.
Go blue.
Go blue.
and an
But my undergrad is from Michigan State,
Oh,
so
good
I
for
was
you.
James Madison. So I get a root for both
Yeah,
at any
and-
given time,
and-
really. But I did grow up a Michigan fan. Always grew up in Southeast Michigan, so we were big Michigan fans.
Right. And did you go right after college to Michigan?
not,
So you took a break too. Was it like a commuting deal?
No. I actually started my career out in D.C. So I did, I might be the only one here that worked on the Hill, like on Capitol Hill. So I had that huge dream of like, I'm going to go work on the Hill and it's going to be great. It's like every TV show. And I would never have traded out that opportunity. It was a great opportunity. And was there almost 3 years, like 2.5 years there. Worked on healthcare. So healthcare has been like my entire career. But I knew when it was time to come back. So, I was dating my now husband at the time. So we were doing a long distance thing, which was tough. And I had met with the dean at the University of Michigan School of Public Health and School of Public Policy. I was dual degree for like 3 days, but didn't do that. And so, I came back. I did a little bit of work when I came back, and then went to grad school. So I sort of took that time that I needed and wanted, and I love DC. And now I oversee both our state and federal government relations at McLaren.
Wow.
So I get to do
DC, the
best of
great
both worlds.
DC, the great city. Hopefully, we'll have a reason to go out there pretty soon if Michigan State advances. Brandy, you have a MPP, Master's in Public Policy.
Yeah, the University of Michigan is what brought me to Michigan. Well, I guess also an ex-husband, but I'm not a native Michigander, although I've been in Michigan now for almost 20 years. Born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a very proud first-generation college-going student. So which is a big part of my career. I've worked exclusively in education policy, but mostly higher education policy. But I came to Michigan for what I thought would be exactly 2 years and get my master's degree from the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy. And it just didn't shake out like that. And I've been here ever since.
Never left. Good for you. At least you were someplace else.
Right.
Unlike me.
What's
Lindsay,
so funny is I want to go to Scottsdale. Like we want to
I know.
retire to Scottsdale. I was like, we're gonna bring it full circle here.
Yeah,
right?
it's like the opposite.
It's
I'm
like
a
the opposite.
well-educated person that
Yep.
moved to Michigan.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
hear mostly about the brain drain
Yeah.
of our talented young people graduating from universities and then leaving. I was the opposite. But I'm obsessed with Michigan. I really do love
Wow,
the
that's
state
great.
of.
That's
I really love
obsessed.
it
Obsessed. And Lindsay, you have a MBA from Michigan State.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I got it when I was 29. I started.
So about a year ago.
Great math. I knew you were. I've heard you were smart. Yeah. So I started at Calvin College, and then I ran out of money, and it was pretty hard to do 4 years of Spanish. I decided, and I finished at Western from undergrad, and then I just wanted some kind of an edge, and I thought MBA sounded hard, and I should do something hard, and
Yeah.
I did it.
And Sarah, you have multiple postgraduate degrees, right?
Yeah, I started out at the University of Michigan out of high school and it picked up, I thought I was going to be an engineer. And let me tell you, I can't do math like that. So I begged the dean for forgiveness. I agreed to switch to political science. And that's where I got this political bug. Because I ended up with a degree in political science and psychology, which has served me well to have that double in undergrad. Then I went also to Western, Master's of Public Administration. I picked up while I was a staffer. And then went to the University of Michigan Raw School of Business to get my MBA in 2007. And that gave me a really different perspective on things and strategy, on how business works, how life works. And it's served me very well.
It'd be fair to say that you guys have, best as I can tell, and I don't really want to date it, but decades of experience in governmental affairs.
Yes.
And, I mean, does anybody go to college or go to school and you certainly not get an MBA, maybe an MPP or public health and think, God, I want to be a multi-client lobbyist someday or governmental affairs?
Not around here, they don't. I think in Washington, D.C., there's a little more of that goes on if you want to go to Georgetown or George Washington or one of those places and major in policy or advocacy or whatever. But here, no, I think most of us, we were staffers, we worked on campaigns,
that's how it gets started,
that's
right?
how we get into it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll break out the numbers later, but 1,500 registered lobbyists in the state, and probably half of them actually lobby day to day. That is a boutique industry. It's as boutique as it gets. And if for someone like me who was raised in the UP, the answer is absolutely not. It's a very interesting path that got me here, but I didn't know a single professional woman growing up, let alone understand the nuance of a career like this. So I think probably other people were exposed more than probably Brandy and I, with being first generation college students. I had no understanding of even how to get an internship or how to understand how to get paid for the thing you were going to college for. But it's
the MBA. I mean, usually MBA, everybody's getting interviewed in finance and banking.
Those
and
are full-time MBAs.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a factory.
Right.
And they line up and they go take their job at Deloitte or whatever. But, executive MBAs, which that's what you did as well, right?
Yeah.
We're often people that
Mid-career.
Mid-career. I mean, I wasn't going to become the next actuary for Jackson National. I mean, I barely passed those courses. I mean, I graduated with the 3.5, but I wasn't looking for that kind of a pivot.
Right.
Yeah, in the executive program, they're training you to manage the people who do those things, right? You want to know just enough information to be able to know how to ask the auditor, okay, what are the right questions here? What did you see? Were there any issues I should know about? Not be able to do the audit.
Then I get the DC thing, right? And so you're around lobbying and government and the whole whatever romantic thing of
It is romanticized.
and you walk down the hall, you all walk down the hallways and you see people that
It's like the West. It's not like the West Wing.
Yeah, and so I get how you would get into governmental affairs, but usually, there's a story about how you somehow you left DC to come back here and you've been in governmental affairs for McLaren for 20 years.
I haven't been in McLaren for 20 years. So
Oh.
I've been in
Healthcare.
health. Oh, I've been in healthcare my entire career, but corporate advocacy for over 20 years. But it's interesting because nowhere in there was I'm going to be a lobbyist. I was a health policy nerd with some social skills. I mean, that's I started out as a health policy person. I mean, I really thought that I was going to be in a think tank or the World Health Organization or something like that. I didn't.
Geneva.
Yeah.
The EU.
Station me in Switzerland. But no, I didn't think about it that way. It just was the natural progression. Once I get got into policy, was working deeply on this policy work, it's kind of where it led me. And now, really over the past 10 years that I've been at McLaren and I sort of oversee the government relations, I do a lot more in the corporate space. I mean, healthcare is really, people say you're some of your parts, right? I come from an entire healthcare family. So it will always be what I want to do. In a multi-client world, you're working on lots of different issues. And, you have an education background. It shaped who you are in your advocacy. And so now I'm in business development. I'm in health finance a lot. And so the School of Public Health, and I had a concentration in health policy and management, is a lot of hospital management, and it was born out of the business school. Actually, there are elements of it that are health economics and health business, and so I am really taken with those elements of it too. And so it's internal and external lobbying, really. Like working with the legislature was a big bulk of my career, still is. I now have some lobby team that works on those, but I'm internally being an advocate on where we're going as a health system and amongst all the other hospital systems. So it's morphed, it's evolved.
Yeah. And your education, obviously, you've been doing that even as part of the Granholm.
Yeah. After undergrad, I went to Arizona State University, political science, and I thought I might want to go to law school, actually, but it was...
Do you have to be super smart?
Something like that. But before I was going to apply to law school, I actually did 2 years of service as a Teach for America Corps member, and I taught third grade in Las Vegas, Nevada, in a really low-income neighborhood where the vast majority of my students were English language learners on free and reduced lunch. And it really inspired me to go into a different direction, to really want to work on education policy. So I applied to policy schools, and I got to U of M. One thing huge shout out to the Ford School. One thing that I really like about the graduate program there is you don't write a master's thesis. You do a really intensive work-based experience, sort of an internship on steroids. And so I did my internship with Granholm toward the end of her administration. So this was 2008. She was term limited in 2010. That's a good tip for young professionals that want to go into working in state politics. Like everyone, we see it right now at the end of the Whitmer administration. People are exiting in a mass exodus looking for their next job. If you're a young person that wants experience, that's when you get right in there. I started as an intern, and then within, pretty shortly thereafter, they're like, do you just want to be the education policy advisor? And I was like, okay, I don't know much about much, but sure.
You got a job.
Exactly.
You got a job.
So I served in the Granholm administration on her policy team just for the last 2 years of her administration, and then had like a real entrepreneurial bug and decided to start my own nonprofit organization. Saw a gap in advocacy in Lansing around higher education. So I founded the Michigan College Access Network, grew it for almost 9 years before being tapped by Governor Whitmer to be her education policy advisor. So I served in the Whitmer administration for her first term, but then pivoted when this opportunity, and I'm not a multi-client lobbyist like Sarah, I'm a single issue lobbyist. I just lobby for community colleges, and I'm an association executive. So we do other things, providing member services and provide technical assistance to our colleges. But I would say the thing we primarily do is be the voice of community colleges in Lansing. And so I've been in this role for 4 years, and it's a real joy.
There you go. So how do you go from the UP and getting an MBA to working for the business leaders of Michigan? Especially, that was, I sort of learned of them mostly during the pandemic, and they were pretty on top of the numbers and the statistics and advising their members.
Yeah, I mean, my entire career has really been like business association, like statewide scaled policy, like improving transportation, improving education outcomes. Like it's a special, unique, very general perch. But how did I get here? I mean, I think I probably have a fairly unique story, but maybe not. We've got a couple other Uper friends in the business, and they stumbled over here
They
somehow.
find their way.
But the reality is this: I grew up in a very 1990s moral majority, highly evangelical home. If you were in an evangelical or fundamentalist home in the 90s, you were exposed to politics constantly. There's a little bit of a resurgence of that now, actually, we're seeing. But, I mean, there was summers where my only friend was Rush Limbaugh on, like, a cow, you know? I mean, that's the only person, that's the only person I would have any engagement with in a given day. And so I was aware of politics. It was kind of a currency in my home, my family, very patriarchal. My grandpa's the preacher and the sheriff, by the way, which I think it's happened like twice in the history of the state. And so I liked the debate. I liked superiority, which is definitely a flag you get to carry around as like a right-wing Christian conservative. And not to say that I don't espouse some of those same views, but I loved that you could be right and God was on your side, and you know, it made for a very, very good way to end any debate, frankly. But I went for a political science degree because I was like, I don't know, this stuff interests me. I like to learn about it. No idea what a career would look like. And then the easiest thing to do with that degree initially, if you don't know anything, and I didn't know anything or anyone, is to go find a campaign to work on. Because you can, like, if you don't know anything, go work on a campaign. You don't need to know anything. You get paid nothing. As long as you can like work 12-hour days and gain 15 pounds in a campaign cycle, like that's the resume you need. Like that's, and I did that for 2 cycles. Bush, his reelect, and then statewide for when DeVos ran against
W.
43. Yeah, W. Yeah, come on. I thought I was 29.
W.
Yeah. Check your facts.
HW.
Check your facts.
It's my age. That's the problem.
Right.
But it took me a while to realize even what I really liked was policy, problem solving, resourcefulness and creativity, like about ideas and opportunities. I didn't think I was 28 before I even realized I don't even I hate politics. I think voters are terrible. I wish we could never talk to them again. I don't like talking to voters. I like solving problems. So eventually I made my way into a legislative office. I should have interned there when I was 19. I didn't know what I was doing. And, that led to some very kind of fortunate, timely opportunities to get in at the Detroit Chamber, which is really an awesome organization. I mean, it's like one of the largest chambers in the whole state. In the whole country. Second or third largest in the whole country. They have a very pragmatic approach to everything, which I loved. And I got to meet Detroiters and city council members and things that I've to come from the UP and have the privilege of working like a Black community and couldn't be more different. It was awesome. I mean, it's a great organization. So I just frankly got lucky, and networking is huge. I mean, just meeting everyone and anyone you can, figure out whittle down what it is you might want to do.
And Sarah, you somehow have managed to become a female multi-client lobbyist owning your own firm, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, you're probably not the first one or the only one, but not a ton of people that have done it
Still a rare breed. Yeah.
successfully.
And a founder,
yeah.
a founder of your own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That is a rare breed.
Right. And, and how do you get there? I mean, obviously you have a high degree of intelligence and multiple master's degrees and that U of M grad like the rest of them, but intelligence doesn't always translate into success at a business or in persuasion, right? The smartest person doesn't always get is able to persuade people. So what was it that got you from where you were to where you are?
Well, I think I was a born salesperson, and I sell issues now. I don't sell things. I sell ideas, and I know how to frame those. But like some others around the table here, I grew up on a farm. My dad was a local politician. I never even heard of, the University of Michigan hardly before I was in high school. Never even visited campus before I decided to go there. And as I mentioned, I started out in the College of Engineering, almost flunked out of college because I was way over my head. But I learned early how to face adversity and overcome it. I also ride horses competitively, and that growing up on a farm, taking care of the livestock, taking care of my own horse, taking care of all of those things taught me a lot of responsibility very early in my life. And I think that served me well. Like she was mentioning, right out of college, I went and worked on a state house campaign in Battle Creek for Bill Martin. He was incumbent at the time, running for re-election. Why did he hire me? I think because I had a pickup truck. So back to that, growing up on a farm, I knew how to use a post pounder because public officials, they love 2x8 signs, out there along the roadside. So I had a pickup truck. I was willing to work for $200 a week and, work ridiculous hours. That gave me just enough experience to get a job as a staffer in Lansing. I worked for a couple different legislators there for a while, and that gave me just enough experience to go to the Detroit Regional Chamber, where I was exposed to such a huge variety of business leaders. And that gave me the foundation to then have this multi-client lobbying firm with my partner and, have these connections throughout the state, which gave me just enough experience to then run for regent at the University of Michigan.
There you go.
Yeah, but what she's not saying though, Sarah probably is one of the quintessential networkers in the business. You were somebody early on identified I was just who do I meet with? Who do I talk to? Who do I learn about? What I don't know what I'm doing next. And I was actually in a state rep's office who was cut out of his district, so I was going to have no job soon. Sarah would take those kind of meetings. Still does. Very generous with your time. But the reality is you're taking meetings all the time. You are like a say yes person, and it has created this master network that you have. There's pretty much, no question you have that you can't find an answer to. And that's really who's successful in this business, I think, are people that are just so connected that broadly.
I love meeting people. I love hearing their story. I love hearing how people got where they got.
That's sort of my next follow-up is that could you point to one person where you said, this person, because really it would have been difficult to see somebody, a year or two ago, or maybe a decade or two ago, where you could say, I want to be just like her, where you're ending up, vice president of McLaren in the governmental affairs or owning their own lobbying firm 20 years ago. So was there a person that impacted you that you could say, this was one of those moments, or was it just, one step at a time kind of thing?
I would say early in my time working on staff in the legislature, I realized very quickly that I wanted to be a lobbyist, that's where the action was in Lansing, that if I was going to stay in Lansing, I wanted to be in that environment rather than sitting behind the desk as a staffer. What
about?
Yeah, there was.
There's nothing wrong with saying my mom or my dad.
No, well, I'll say one, and I think I'll say one person for this job that I have now. So I'm the president of the Michigan Community College Association. There's 3 higher ed associations in Michigan. Michigan is really unique in that we don't have a true higher ed state agency. Most states have some sort of centralized oversight entity that oversees higher ed. But in Michigan, our 15 public universities are autonomous. U of M, MSU, and Wayne State are truly constitutionally autonomous from the state. And Michigan's community colleges are as well. And so in absence of a state agency, the 3 higher ed associations provide an outsized voice in advocacy on higher ed issues. So, I run the Community College Association. I have a counterpart that runs the Association for State Universities, and I have a counterpart that runs the Association for Independent Colleges and Universities. And so one person that definitely changed the trajectory, I think, in terms of this career is one of my former presidents, who's now the president at Western Michigan University, Russ Cavaluna. At the time, he was the president of Henry Ford College. And he called me one day when he knew my predecessor was going to retire. I answered the phone. We were sort of still very much in COVID, and so I thought it was a COVID-related issue where I got yelled at a lot during COVID by people wanting to know when things were going to open or sort of regulations or things like that. So I thought I was getting ready for him to be mad about something. And he just said, Ms. Johnson, I'm going to talk for about 90 seconds. I want you to say nothing, and then I'm going to hang up the phone. and I'll call you back at some point. And I was like, okay, here it comes. And he
Sounds
said,
like every phone call we've ever had.
I know.
Yeah, right.
And so I said, okay. And he said, I fundamentally believe you are the next president of the Michigan Community College Association. You might not think that, but several of us do. And I'm going to need you to start dusting off your resume. I need you to start making connections, but you are going to apply for this job. And I really fundamentally believe you are the one. I was still in my 30s. And a female had never been a president of one of these associations in the history of Michigan, not the State University Association, not the independent colleges and universities, and certainly not the Community College Association. Most really, I mean, in recent memory, everyone that had been in those positions had been an older man. These are really good gigs. They tend to go to people that are later in their career. And so I don't know if someone hadn't been that direct with me, if I would have had the confidence to apply on my own.
And Russ was a former community college president.
At the time, he was the president of Henry Ford College. And so
there
he
you
was
go.
he was a member of the association, a board member of the
and a
association.
former clerk to, at the time, Chief Justice Michael Kavanaugh. I think he actually replaced me. I cleared for Kavanaugh, and then he and I met him at one of our conferences. But yeah, really good guy, and obviously. How about you, Deidre? Do you have somebody you could point to?
Well, I can't point to somebody, but I can point to what I remember shifted my view of things. So when I was in DC, because you go out there with this like fantasy idea, it was right?
What year? What data?
29.
yeah, 1999. Clinton years. Those were Clinton years. So, and you will find people now like this too. There's people that want to be on the inside, and they want to be on the inside for like ever, right? It's like that is the sphere of their influence. They want to be on the inside, and they're like built to be on the inside. And so when I was in DC, and I was working as a staffer on the inside, and I got really lucky too. I had worked for this congressional member and like internships when I was in college. I skipped a step when I started and was like a legislative aide right away. I wasn't like a staff assistant or whatever. And the legislative director who I knew had the health issues, hated them. And was sort of like, here you go. And it was like sink or swim, right? It was like, you're 21, 22 years old. And so I had a great benefit of that. But my cousin, who shaped a lot on the health policy, I guess, side, was the CMS director for George H. Bush. So it was HCFA then. It wasn't, so I had seen sort of her career.
H.W. Bush.
H.W. Georgia.
Right.
Yes, right.
First one.
The first one.
41.
The first one, 41. So when I was in D.C., and I hadn't spent a lot of time with her, she lived in D.C., obviously, and sort of became kind of a lobbyist. She was like a fellow at a think tank, but was doing a lot of lobbying. And so when I was there, she took me around. So, I was working for a congressional member, was a legislative aide, but she was taking me around. And like it was different. Like her sphere of influence on the outside. I was going to places I wasn't going with the congressman. I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like she's getting indoors that are like, but it wasn't even the getting in the doors. It was what she was able to do. It's like she just had a conversation. It's like, boom, it gets done. Like it's just done. And it was real, solidly great health policy issues, right? And I'm like, maybe I'm looking at this like the wrong way. And I wasn't a really political person either. I was more about the issues than I was about the politics. I was really heavy into the issues. Yeah, it's just, I'm just not about the politics. It's like, who's supporting my issues? I really care about this issue. And so watching her do that definitely changed my viewpoint on maybe where I wanted to be in the world of, advocating, whether it was in a sheer lobby space or like really advocating or working on policy and issues. And now I worked very little on the inside in Lansing. I spent a year on policy staff when I transitioned out of grad school, but then was picked up in the private sector. And I'm like a private sector junkie. Like I would never go back in. I'm not even to be a health advisor. I wouldn't do it in any kind of capacity. I like what I do for a single issue an entity to be able to shape it and then work in a lot of different
Now, when you're
capacities
like
too.
the most qualified, probably to be a public sector advisor.
Yeah.
Right? You're
not
like,
interested in
I
that.
would
Like,
never do it. Right?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not interested in that. Right.
And Lindsay, you mentioned Sarah. Is there anybody else out there that you know?
I mean, I've thought about this while they were talking, and I think it would be this camp of women that are between 10 and 20 years ahead of me in my career that knew and know this is a really hard place on women. The Lansing, the bubble, Ottawa, Allegan, and Michigan is a very hard place for women, particularly young women. And they're very generous with their time, with their openness. I'd put Sarah on that list. I'd put the late Kelly Rossman. I mean, that woman, the time she gave me one-on-one, and she didn't drink. We'd have tea, and then on her birthday, I'd bring her teas. I even think about a Nancy McKeague, people like that they were generous. They were generous with their time. They were generous with, and they were non-judgmental. And I think there is a camaraderie that you feel there. There's some women that don't like working with other women, but for the most part, the community here really takes care of each other. And I remember, I think one of my early meetings with you, I was asking for your, and I think you were like, do something with your hair. It's a little.
You really took that advice.
I mean, we basically have the same hair now,
We do
Sarah.
now.
But I think it was wild and windblown or something, and she was like, let's get that sorted.
Let's get that worked out.
But otherwise, just inclusive
Sometimes
and helpful.
sometimes a man can't say that.
Right.
That's true.
Do that, even though it's the same advice, and even though it might be spot on.
But she's right about Kelly Rossman McKinney. For me too, a group of women who are a little bit older, but we used to have this chick group, we'd just call it. And, we'd have dinners at each other's homes once in a while or have a fundraiser or whatever. And Kelly was a big part of that. Linda Gobler, Nancy McKeague, Ann Parker.
And by the way, bipartisan.
Bipartisan. Yeah, absolutely. Jackie Haddon, a lot of women, several of them who aren't with us anymore too, but women who
That
kept that group going and was really intent on making sure that there was a networking opportunity for women coming up in the system in Lansing and knowing that there are others that we could lean on.
I'm
Now,
still in a
food
group
bench.
like that. It's called the Supper Club. It's
Yeah.
been going on.
Right.
A lot of people. It's been
Right.
going on for
So
22 years.
let's talk about the bubble then, because it's nice and it's cool, I guess, to have an office downtown, which most of you do. You probably.
I have one, and I have a corporate office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
My office is 2 stories above
Yeah.
Sarah's.
Oh,
yeah. So you leave.
There.
you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to-
We're all in the same building.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're all.
Yeah.
We're all in the same building.
Yeah, so
It's fine.
you leave the office, right? You sort of dominate the office, and then you have to presumably walk to a building for a hearing, or do something, and now you're sort of in the impact. What do you mean by being in the bubble, and how it could be really hard or judgmental?
I'll let someone else go first.
Well,
I mean, it's probably different now because you walk in and everybody knows who you are, but there was probably a period of time where,
it's a little different now, but I would say earlier in my career, I took it very seriously about, what my hair looked like or my appearance or how I dressed. I mean, I have older sisters who are always like, why are you dressing like a grandma? Why are you trying to dress so conservatively when I was in my 20s? I'm like, because I'm in a serious business where there's a lot of men, and I don't want them to be looking at me like I'm, next week's conquest. I want to be taken seriously. As Melanie Griffith says, you want to be taken seriously, you need serious hair. So
It's a great
that's,
movie.
An important thing. And it continues to be a very male-dominated area. When you look at the makeup of the legislature, there aren't very many women at all who are willing to run for public office. And so that's where I'm a bit of an anomaly too in my service to the university, that I actually took that step and ran for office. A lot of people just don't want to go through that scrutiny, and I get it every day now on my social media. Anybody can look at that and see how I get pounded out constantly about the things that they want to happen at the university. And you just have to be tough to be in this business. You have to have thick skin.
Can I lay out the numbers?
Yes, for
Please
sure.
do. You have
So-
numbers?
You're like,
I
you're
do.
handy.
Wow.
Yeah,
notes.
yeah, no,
I
yeah,
actually-
yeah.
I
I'm
forgot
good
my
at-
notes.
I'm good at homework. So the state, 51% female population. The legislature, so this actually surprised me. We're at a high, all-time high at 39% in Michigan, which that's higher than I thought.
39%.
Females of the
legislature.
electeds of legislatures, House and Senate included together.
Right.
39% as women, highest we've ever been. Also, a little above the national average for state legislature makeup. Although you think about the Senate, and it's 38 people, and it feels so female over there. I'm like, I can't even think of one male-led senator. I mean, but there's only 14, right? That's like not even close to half. So
Right.
you know what I mean? It's still
Yeah.
a paradigm that we're working with. But then on the lobbyist side, so this was interesting because we talked about registered lobbyists. So an organization like Randy's or something, they might have 4 people on their staff registered, but like really 1, maybe 2. It's just a CYA thing. So out of the 1,500 registered lobbyists, about 600 are women, which I was like, that felt high to me as well. So I went through the names. I mean, there's plenty of people on here on the list that I think none of us have ever heard of. But then I like deep dove and looked at like 8 or 9 of the large multi-client firms. And you're way down then to about 25% representation. So like a firm of 10, they've got 2. A firm of 12, they've got 3. In most of these cases, you've got maybe 1 senior woman. So that's another thing to think about, like the amount of people registered versus where they're at in their career. You know, are they
Right.
30-year veterans, or are they the coordinator that, takes notes in the hearings? So 25%, 20%, the highest, there's a couple
What do you-
multi-clients. Actually, Sarah, yours.
What do you deduce from that then? That there aren't women that want to become lobbyists, or that there's barriers to entry for women, or both?
It's interesting because it's not like there aren't a significant amount of female staffers. I mean, there are a significant amount of female staffers.
Low paid.
Yeah, low pay.
Chief of staff in both the House and Senate, majority are women.
Are women. So it is interesting to think about what it is that has them not ascending to a senior level lobbyist position.
I mean, our governor's a woman.
Our governor's a woman.
100% of the executive
I mean, our
branch.
entire
100%
statewide
of the
office.
executive
Yeah.
branch.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
that there's been some shift, but interestingly, they're all similarly our age, right? Like, I mean, they're like the Gen X-y kind of, group of individuals. It will be interesting to see how the lobby corps sort of populates coming up, because it's not that there aren't females in the system. It's just where they've ascended over the period of time, with their male peers coming up, I guess, at the same time.
I think there's a certain level of confidence you need to have as
That's
a
true,
person
too.
to do what
Yeah.
we do. And women maybe haven't always been encouraged to have that level of confidence.
Yeah.
Speak up in a meeting, to
Yeah.
share your thoughts, to lead a meeting, to tell people where to sit in the meeting, to take that leadership role that we have to take as advocates. People think they just pay me to schmooze. I
Right.
take people out to lunch all the time, and that is an important part of my day. But the strategy
lunch.
we go through and those kinds of things are so important. And it doesn't always come naturally to all women. I think you have to grow into that.
I might dare make a few provocative observations. Maybe I'm in a little bit more of a flexible place to opine. But, I mean, I think we kind of established the thing about women taking care of women. But I think men really still take care of men and in this industry. And I think by the numbers, you see that, right? And another thing is that multi-client representation, for example, is often about hiring someone you like. Let's be honest, there's a lot of mediocrity in this town, primarily because a third of the mission of the organization's lobbying is to just don't do anything bad to me. I mean, we're not talking about disruption. We're not talking about, aspirational, we're not building the next rocket here often. It's often people being paid to spend time with other people, preferably they want people like them or people they like to be the one that they sit at dinners with and go to fundraisers with, but often to just maintain the status quo. That is the goal. So I do think, though, there's kind of this pattern around, maybe behavior is a word that is charged, but like the reality is I don't think women are really allowed to make mistakes in Lansing. I think if you think about a lot of men in this career, like there's a lot of mistakes, and they sort of like, if you think about someone, you're like, what happened to that person? Like, how often is that a dude, right? The reality is, men support men. I mean, there are men that have run for congressional office, for statewide office, that have like a bouquet of interesting choices, or punching people in public, et cetera. Like, we all kind of just put the ornaments on the tree of like, whatever, and we move along. And I think women get traumatized. I think there's a higher standard. And the reality is, this is not a meritocracy, this town. It is very much relationship based, except grab 4 men like us. And do they have 4 graduate degrees from Big 10 universities? We know we have to have an edge. So I think the meritocracy is it feels often that it's for women, because we need that to be able to get in the same rooms. And otherwise, it's your network. And while I know Brandy's children's birthdays, I know Deidre's most traumatic event of her childhood. I know that Sarah played the bassoon, and I know about her sisters and her mom. And but golf leagues are really big.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in a golf league.
Yeah, I gave up playing golf because I don't have time for that, and I don't smoke cigars either. But I know that's the thing that a lot of the guys like to do that are legislators and the lobbyists and
bourbon.
Bourbon.
I don't like
yeah,
bourbon.
I don't like
The brown
bourbon
stuff, yeah,
And
not like-
on the other hand, the women in the legislature, they don't necessarily want to go shopping with me either.
Yeah.
Like maybe they do, but I don't know. It's not a thing we do
You
together.
got high end tastes.
Maybe
go shopping with you
maybe it's safer for a guy to hang out, like go to a strip club with another guy. I mean, that might be safer, or drink and get drunk and say, yeah, I was with so and so all night, instead of.
I mean, I think it's not just Lansing like this is what's really interesting. I mean, I don't work in a corporate environment. I've worked in a lot of corporate environments.
Right.
Corporate has for a long time been that way. I mean, this is so funny. I will be careful how I say this. So when I got into the C-suite of McLaren, it's like you put my picture up, right? And my oldest and dearest friend, who's a lawyer and in New York, and I sent her the picture of like the C-suite, right? And she was like, well, man, don't you stick out. And I mean, the female, I was not at that time, I was the only female at that time for a period of time. And I was the youngest by a mile. I mean, really glaringly noticeable. And I mean, I love our sushi. I give them all the credit for building what they built. But I would walk in when I go to corporate, and it's just like I'm just bebopping like the little whippersnapper on the floor, like whatever. And you sort of are like, well, how? That doesn't happen very often. And what is it? It is a bit of I think I could say this for all of us. It is more of a meritocracy in that sense, in that we all really earned getting there with our specialized nature of what we did and being as good as we have been in our particular field. It doesn't always follow the case it's a female. I mean, I've seen plenty of females fall up too, which it just happens. But I mean, yeah, you do see maybe you see a preponderance
Failing
of that
up
happening.
is a thing.
Yeah, failing up
For
happens.
What I mean, you obviously, when you applied to the MCCA, or maybe you learned this, you knew the history of women in that position. I mean, did that weigh on you at all?
Yeah, eventually, a couple of things. One, I sought out some advice from other women in the community college sphere. And I remember I reached out to a former president. She had just retired as a president. And I just said, hey, I'm applying for this position. I know it's a long shot. To your point about, I think it's so true that women sometimes don't lead with confidence. And so I was like, oh, I know it's a long shot, but, you know, do you have any advice for me? And she said something I'll never forget, which is to lead with my warmth. And that is something that the association desperately needed, is someone that was warm and friendly and outgoing and willing to push the envelope a little bit more and be more proactive and disruptive. And so I did. And I eventually just said, you know, forget it. I remember my interview was in Benton Harbor at Lake Michigan College. And I just remember driving there and alone with my thoughts. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be so clearly me in the interview and not try to perform. And I'm going to say it exactly how I would lead this association differently. And I just went all in. And, you know, the board responded positively. And so yeah, sometimes you just got to lean into the characteristics.
To me, it seems like you're just a natural fit for that job. I mean, we now obviously don't know much. I knew the former president. It seemed like a nice enough guy, you know, and
Well, leadership. I
but
mean,
you seem to be a real.
I'd say, like your defining thing at this table, like your career has been about leadership as much as it has been about any issue or.
Yeah.
I mean, you started an association and ran at it.
Yeah, I love that part of the job. And actually, when I worked in the executive office, I mean, you talk about going back to the inside. I'm the same way. Yeah. Now that I've done it, I don't think I could or would go back. I mean, the one exception is if someone that I was just really, really, really respected wanted me.
Called to duty.
Yeah. But for the most part, one of the things I struggled with most was not being in charge. When you work for governors, you're very much not in charge of anything. And you can give the best advice you can make your opinion known, but at the end of the day, it's the elected that has the ultimate responsibility. And so that's something I really missed. And so I like being an executive. I like being in charge. I like making decisions.
Who doesn't? I
People don't.
I actually have gotten to the age where I feel like, can somebody else make these decisions?
Yeah. Management's difficult. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not easy.
But
for everybody.
But
It's not for
you know, when you read those numbers, Lindsay, and unfortunately or fortunately, I've been around. I remember Debbie Stabenow on our first campaign coming knocking on our door on a Sunday, and certainly guys like Lynn Jondal and Bob Carr and longtime people. You think, God, even today and everything we've been through, there's not much has changed, but there has been changes in the bubble, right? Even if we have not a lot of women lobbyists or state reps, seems like when they did term limits, it opened up the door to some degree. But what are the changes that you've seen? Like you could point to one or two or three, what I'll call in the bubble of downtown Lansing.
I mean, I think the numbers are just a good reminder to those that think everything
That's good.
is that we're not in 1960 anymore, and we're not. And I'm sure I'm sure I can point to some, even in my 15-year career or whatever, improvements. But I think that the feeling of this will be my last cynical part, and then I'll just I'm going to lock in on optimism. But you know, we've all been in a meeting where we said something probably pretty insightful, and it was like, that's nice. And 15 minutes later, our male peer says it, and it's like Socrates himself came
Brilliant.
and penned his last words, you know, that conference table, and you're like, and so, I mean, the reality is we have to put that somewhere. And I do, frankly, I think about a guy like Doug Rothwell was like ahead of his time. And actually Rick Snyder like people like that, they were like, oh no, we need women. Like this is actually, we're like off without this. But it's still, we are a generation or two away from us not having experiences that we know and feel that like I can only articulate to you by reading you a bunch of numbers.
Right. But what beyond that, what do you think, just as a lobbyist generally, what do you think has
Just like,
been
what's changed about the job?
I mean, a lot.
changed
I
about
think that
downtown?
just open sexism is less. I would say.
Yeah.
Than,
Was
you know,
that-
I've been
is
around
that
here
better?
since '91.
That's better.
I think that's better. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on your
Yeah.
point of view there.
Yeah,
but
that's
like,
better.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that people are more, professional in what we do around here, are more willing to just like take you based on your merit and your thoughts than like, there's still always a lot of talk about, well, do we need another woman in our firm, or, balancing the ticket. If the governor's a man, does the lieutenant governor
Yeah.
have to be a woman? Like that kind of stuff still happens. And I mean, I appreciate it and kind of reject it at the same time. Like, why do you have to look at it like that? Why can't you have the two best qualified people out there doing those jobs or having those kinds of experiences? But I'd say we see less of that just open kind of, no, we need guys in these jobs.
I've felt over the course of my career, just Lansing in general, but I'm sure a lot of workplaces have become a little bit more compassionate to people who are also humans. When I was at the Michigan College Access Network, so I'm the founding executive director of the Michigan College Access Network. It's an advocacy organization working on higher ed issues, and that is when I had my kids, and when my daughter was born with just some pretty significant health complications that none of us were expecting, and I was immediately figuring out how I was gonna help get her through her first several surgeries, being at C.S. Mott Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor a lot, and like tons of appointments, tons of surgeries, tons of special needs. It was really overwhelming at first. So I was on what I thought was going to be a 6-week maternity leave, like pretty standard 6-week paid. Again, wasn't required by law, but I was appreciative of the organization. And so I checked in with my board for a regular board meeting, and I was on my maternity leave but wanted to go to the board meeting. And I was driving to the meeting. I got to the parking lot of my office. My baby was 3 weeks old. And I was getting out of the car when my board chair called me and said, "Hey, you really don't need to come to this board meeting. You should be home with your baby." And I said, "Oh, I'm already here. I'm in the parking lot. I'll see you in 1 minute." And she said, "No, seriously, there is no meeting." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "We actually changed the meeting. We were supposed to meet at 11:30. We actually all met at 9 a.m. We scrapped the agenda. There was one agenda item, and that was to approve a 6-month paid leave of absence for you to go help your daughter," which is still to this day the best gift I've ever received, but the most purest form of professional compassion that I had. And so she said, "I actually, if you're here in the parking lot, do run into the office. We need you to sign something for the bank, allowing someone else to sign the checks for you while you're away." Ironically, the person that I appointed to sign my checks is now Senator Sarah Anthony, an appropriations chair. She was my deputy at the time, and she ran the organization. And that incident single-handedly changed my management and leadership style. I became instantly a much more compassionate human. And so I think I have noticed that in the workplace, and certainly in Lansing, is that if your kid is homesick, or if you need to be in 3 places, or you have an aging parent, and recognizing that we as professionals are also humans that are dealing with human things, and that uniquely impacts women differently than it does with men.
Yeah, I don't ever recall the terminology work-life balance ever coming up in the career. We have a now almost 16-year-old, 10 days, be 16. But it was one of those things I remember. It's just, it's not that I would go and not talk about having a family. Everybody knew you had a family, but it just was like not a stick out sort of point. Like, oh, I'm leaving because I have to go do something here. You fit it in, and you still work extra and more. I mean, we just were working, all like just working. This concept, you're right. The concept of, and it's beyond just women. It's in general, but it definitely applies a lot to women because of family. There was no work-life balance. I don't remember that concept ever, like when we came up. Do you remember? I just don't.
You underplayed
I think
it.
it's
You underplayed it.
Yeah,
because I just
you
don't.
avoided it.
You
Talking
avoided
about
it.
it.
You avoided it.
I think COVID like blew the doors off of this in a way that's been hugely beneficial for women. I mean, I think generally, so I'm not debating in office or out of office policies or whatever, but this idea that we actually looked at output and what do we need you to do, and are you doing it, and are you doing it well? As it kind of slid into maybe even first place. I had some early jobs. I have my son's going to be he just turned 17, and I had some early jobs that were like. I remember one employer telling me, he's still around, if you really want to move up, like you need to not be here at 8, you need to be here at 7:30, you need to be here at 7:40, and you need X to see you that you're here the earliest. And for like 5 minutes, I did that, but why? So I could sit there. And so someone could see me, and there was often no work when I got there at 8 or 9 or noon. That was the coin of the realm. Another job I remember, this is after I had a baby, and I think, everybody's gone. It was 4:50 on a Friday. I took off, and I got a call, at 4:59. I just called the office. You didn't answer. Where are you? It's not to happen again. And you're like, so that's not just for women, but I would say when I was on a Detroit Regional Chamber did an update call during COVID, and Garland Gilchrist got on. He was giving the update, and he had a 2-3-year-old something screaming their face off. I mean, not like a coo, like a scream, and my heart like leapt with joy. Just because it was, not that he was, but he was fine with it, by the way. He was like, hey, I'm trying to work and I have kids at home, because he's, I think seems to be a pretty modern man in that sense. And I appreciated that. But it was like finally some democratization of the things that we are carrying around, and that like we're often looked at like, it's 4:59, where are you? Versus like, all my work is done and I have a baby waiting, and that's improved. Like, we did generations worth of improvement in 5 years on that.
I do worry, though, about what working from home is going to do to this generation and the relationships they can make in the workplace. And I don't know whether young men or young women are more likely or less likely to stay home or be in the office right now. But I worry that that's going to set them back for a long time. And now with the implementation of AI and what that's doing to people earlier in their career, how is that going to affect anybody?
Well, what do you mean by the implementation of AI?
Well, I mean, we're working people out of job right and left with AI. I mean, you have a law firm here. I'm sure you're seeing it. I know other law firms are across the country.
I haven't really worried about it. We've used Westlaw for forever, and that's in some ways AI. I mean, it gives you, spits you out the cases right on point on the specific issue, or it doesn't write the brief. But I haven't seen AI write a brief that was really worth, and maybe someday it will, but I don't know. I think it is helpful. It can be a tool.
Well, it's a big topic.
You don't need anybody to take notes at meetings anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's one thing we did have a lot of our interns and such doing. We don't need them to do that anymore.
And now, because they aren't doing that at the ground level, right, getting that in, they're not getting those relationships,
they're not learning.
Right? So it's like what I think is really in our field, let's take our field, what's an interesting consequence, right, is like, we don't need to have those people doing it, but then how do you bump somebody in to be a lobbyist or work their way in based on relationships when they were never able to get the job to get in to do that work because it wasn't necessary for them to do the work anymore? That will be an interesting issue. I think that comes up.
I think the in-person meetings, I mean, Zoom meetings are great. If I have to drive to Grand Rapids or something, I can do it by Zoom. But it's so impactful to see people
Far
in
preferable. Yes,
person.
absolutely. But do young people understand that? Who have, just graduated from college amid COVID and working from home, and Zoom is the thing they know. Do they get that?
I don't, I mean, I don't know.
I worry that
I
they
don't know generally, but I do know is what we do in the firm. Like we tell people, go to the courtroom, have everybody see you. Your biggest solicitation is to walk into a courtroom and have other clients there, and where they can see you're the best lawyer in the club. But tell me, what you think will happen to downtown Lansing. Do you think we're gonna
Another sub shop?
bring back the employees?
I think we have to. I don't think there's any question, and I am disappointed that they're not
I mean,
back
you
yet.
all live
Yeah.
locally,
I
right?
mean, I hope they do.
You all,
I don't
even
understand.
though
They
you-
do.
I don't
even though
understand
you're-
why the governor, the mayor, the Chamber of Commerce of Lansing are demanding that employees come back to.
Well, the Lansing Chamber has been,
They stepped up.
has been saying it. It's a ghost town down there, and it's, for me, it's been a common question. I had Andy Shore on here, and I've had Amsing on here, and maybe Joey Bixie and a couple others, and I don't get it. Like,
That's one, like, what's changed about the
Yeah.
business? I mean,
There's no one there.
it's, yeah.
And you can't get a hold of people,
Right.
And
I hate
and
it, yeah.
like, you can't call somebody's office if you have their cell phone. Great, they won't answer their email. Like, you don't see them at lunch. You don't necessarily see them at a committee hearing. When you talk about going to the courtroom, well, a lot of those people that work for the state, like, they don't care. They're not going to go to those meetings in person. They've been given the okay to take those engagements from home. And they're very happy that way. They're not worried about those other things you're worried about, and it's a barrier.
Yeah, I just think it's a capital city in general.
Yes.
Like, there is just an essence of, a capital city should be this, and bustling,
Vibrant.
vibrant with the people who are the workers of the capital city and the government and such. Like, maybe that's not the case with other cities, but as a capital city, it just strikes me as that.
there's really no showing though that it's government's any less. There's like not a study that we're any less effective. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen.
No,
You
it's
guys
costing
can-
more, though.
You guys can knock out the statistics on reading and education and where we're at nationally and how we keep falling. I mean, I don't know that there isn't a study. I think there is. I think there's a lot of problems out there, and it would help if people were actually working.
It's Lansing's. That's one of the reasons I love here. In it's similar to Madison, but there's not very many places like it where the state capital and the college town are together, which makes it just a really fun place to work but play. So I live right here in East Lansing, and my husband works at the university. He could walk to the university if he wanted to. I love that magical part, but it's missing some of the magic. I personally go into my office every single day. I work
You're
in
old
person
school, though.
5 days
Yeah.
a week, and I love
lot
it.
of ways.
I do think COVID was traumatizing. Like, it was isolating. It was high, and especially if you worked in government relations, it was high stress. So that's what I associate with working from home
Yeah.
is this anxiety, stressful emergency situation.
I didn't have a break for like 3-4
Yep.
years.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
nothing. Zoom. It's horrible.
There was a little bipolar, manic
Yeah.
depressive. I think there were some parts of it that were really, really nice. Like, oh, I guess I can go play golf in the middle of the afternoon.
Not in our
yeah.
house.
Not
Well,
No, I
You know, I
like
guess-
literally
I guess-
constant.
But
Zoom.
then,
Yeah.
but then
See,
there's
let's go
the,
back 30 minutes in the conversation.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
but then there's the
Wasn't great in the hospital
anxiety
world.
of
right.
of
Wasn't
how
great.
you're gonna make a living, right? I mean, you had the like, oh, I guess I can work out or go ride a bike or it was a sort of a double-edged sword and like a long vacation that. Okay, the vacation's over now.
It was absolute hell. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even like to talk about it, so.
Yeah.
No.
Do you
don't.
Zoom from the car? I mean, I
We're-
can still do that. That's one thing.
We're entering. We're in an election cycle, right? How much does that impact your job when we're, what's more impactful, a presidential election or a statewide governor's election?
For my work, it's both. I mean, I'm watching the midterms in Congress a lot. I mean, that will be a big impact for my world and what I'm working on too. But it's a big, I mean, unlike DC, which, we bop back and forth 4 years, different people. I mean, we've had the same people, 8 years in that statewide office. And so anytime you have a shift, it's a dynamic shift. And I mean, we're going to see a whole new set of, and we've probably met them or seen them before, some might be wholly new, staff people, cabinet members, directors of departments. So it definitely is a dynamic shift. Hard to say what happens with the legislature too, and then how are those people going to work with one another? So we have to recalibrate.
I think it's important to remember that, again, another way that Michigan is unique. One of my really fun parts of my job is I get to know the me of other states and see the world through their lens. So the me.
no other.
Oh, thank you. But there's a me of Massachusetts. There's a me of Missouri. There's a me of Iowa. There's a me of Illinois. And in most other states, the partisan makeup, their legislatures are supermajorities, right? So even when you have election years, it's like new group of people, but the same. Yeah. The politics really aren't going to change. But in Michigan, it's like, who knows? I mean, I think I've almost worked in every possible permutation in terms of who's in the governor's office, who's the majority in the Senate, who's the majority of the House. We've all worked in Republican trifectas, Democratic trifectas, 2 of one of the other, 1 of one, 2 of the other.
I'm the only one that worked in the 50-50 House.
I did not. Yeah, I wasn't here yet. So I think that it actually is sort of like, it makes it exciting. And really any configuration could happen.
Yeah.
Come January 1st, especially with an independent running for governor.
Yeah, it could be all over the place.
That'll be a new configuration permutation, maybe.
We've reached that time in the governor's term where we're all excited for the next governor. We can't wait to see what the next governor brings to the table, the new ideas, the new people, the new energy. There's just as you mentioned earlier, the exodus has started with the staff. The governor appears to be focused on some other things. It's time to look to the future and see who can get in there.
Can you still get stuff done this?
We can get a budget done. We have to. It's the only thing the Constitution requires.
But to that point, I mean, just the numbers are that the significantly fewer bills getting signed into law, right? And then you put a lame duck governor. I mean, it's like there's, to your question, probably not that much.
Not that much policy is
very
done.
little.
This year.
But there's always curveballs in lame duck. I mean,
what was it, 4 years ago? When we passed 400 bills in lame duck in the 3 weeks or whatever.
Oh, where some of them
400 went to the governor.
Some of them didn't get sent over.
And last year, no, that was 2 years ago. 4 years ago, it was 400.
4 years ago,
400. I mean, in the entire year last year, 6 bills were signed by the governor. 6 policy bills.
Is that good or bad?
Depends who you are.
Yeah, it depends on who you are, right? Whether you think there's problems.
Well,
in the
I think
defense
actually an
offense.
interesting question is because to a multi-client, right? Because you've got clients that need stuff done. You've got clients that are like, hey, just monitor, and I just don't introduce a bill to ban the stuff I sell. Yeah. And then you've got aspirational groups like the Detroit Chamber or people that have agendas and they want to see a major reform paired with an investment in child care, whatever. How do you manage that though as a multi-client, especially knowing I'm sure you've got people in all those camps.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to set realistic expectations because there's nothing worse than a client who's incredibly disappointed when you promise them something and it doesn't happen. So we spend a lot of time talking about exactly what's going on and talking about how we can lay the groundwork of messaging and educating public officials and making sure bad things don't happen. But, maybe we find other avenues to do the things that need to be done. Like we go through the executive branch or we, just try to change practices or operations and that kind of thing.
Yeah, level setting. I mean, I have to level set with our corporate team. I mean, a CFO's worst nightmare is instability and reimbursements and where's Medicaid going to be and this and that. And, I can give my best, guess on where I think things are going to land, but we have to level set with everybody that we sort of answer to, whether it's our teams or if it's a client, on where we think it's actually feasible. That's a place.
Tell me how big is McLaren?
So we have 13 hospitals statewide. We have a statewide health plan, and
Like an insurance.
Insurance, yeah. Largely Medicaid and Medicare Advantage. So we're the only statewide health plan, actually, Medicaid health plan.
And healthcare is like, I just want to go to the doctor, but it's much more complicated than that, right?
Who knew?
Right. Very,
Yes,
very,
very
and
complicated.
it's not only complicated, but it's not stagnant, right?
No. Yeah, and it's highly regulated.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
70% of the payer now in the healthcare space is government payers between Medicare and Medicaid. So, it highly relies on where any of those reimbursement mechanisms and levers are pulled.
Whether in
DC or at the
what do
state
you
level.
worry about, or what keeps you up at night besides forget about your children and your family?
Yeah.
But the work.
I'm a neurotic, Andrew. Everything keeps me up
And
at
a
night.
hypochondriac.
And I'm hypochondriac. Like, I live to work.
Shut this down.
Jewish mother. These guys will attest to it. When COVID hit, I was like, I was built for this pandemic. Oh, I mean, everybody was like, don't worry, let's go to Deidre's house. She's got tubs of hand sanitizer, and I did, and masks. Before, I knew it was happening.
So I'm already
I was
wearing
like,
this
sorry.
stuff.
So right. I was
Friday.
like, what are you talking about? I've had this for months. What worries me in healthcare and the space, I mean, I don't know if people really realize how fragile the system is. And I mean, I'm not being dramatic. I worked through several administrations, presidential administrations, and big healthcare reforms or attempts at reforms, and from the Clinton years to the Obama years to all of those in between, and we're in for some really tough times, and something really much bigger
In
I think
healthcare?
is going to have to happen in healthcare. It is just not sustainable, and Sarah knows a little bit about this with obviously her work at University of Michigan too, in Michigan medicine. I mean, rural healthcare, we have a lot. I have in my system a lot of rural healthcare. It's just not sustainable.
Are we better served today since the McLaren over up at Jolly? I mean, and with the U of M, with the U of M buying Sparrow, I mean, are we better served in this community as our healthcare?
Oh, listen, I mean, I think it's a 2-hospital community. I think having the competition, if you want to call it competition, I think it does better serve the community. I think everybody has to elevate their level of quality of care and service to what they can offer to the patients of this community. And there is enough population to have its service. And there are a lot of things that Michigan medicine does because of the nature of the academic medical institution that we, as more of a community hospital, we don't do. And so I think there's room for partnership, and what you're doing in the behavioral health space is something that's greatly needed, and we would support that. What's interesting in the advocacy space, we talk about this all the time amongst the hospital lobbyists. Our systems, I hate to use the word compete because it's not, but we're in different communities, and from a business perspective, I guess it's competition. But in the advocacy space, we're 98% of the time we're on the same page. I mean, we can and do work together, and we are better together working for the common goals because we're dealing with all of the same things. So to us, if somebody is getting something in appropriations or budget and it's dollars for something more in a community, this is me speaking personally, maybe everybody doesn't feel this way. I'm like, great, that's more money in healthcare. I am pro more money in healthcare, and if we're not offering it and somebody else is and they can, I want them to do it.
I'm not even sure I have a family doctor. When they ask me, so who's your family doctor? I'm like, I go to urgent care. I guess I go to urgent.
They love hearing that.
I go to urgent care.
Don't tell me that, Andrew.
But I don't even know. Like,
Are you talking to a doctor?
Nobody.
Can we help you with that?
Do you know anybody that's a
Either
family
of us
doctor?
could find
Yeah,
you.
either of us.
Probably in the
We all
Lansing
have
area.
primary care
I mean,
physicians, Andrew. You're
Yes.
the one.
I don't have a
Everyone
primary care physician.
we
I
do.
call Chris Abood. if I have a primary?
Oh, Lord.
What should I do?
Right next door.
What about
Walking right through the emergency
how many
room.
community
Girl, you're
colleges
good.
in Michigan?
We have, so I represent 31 colleges. We have 28 public, state-funded community colleges, and then I also represent Michigan's 3 tribal colleges.
So, and how many, how big of a student body do those 21?
31.
31.
So we collectively serve around 350,000 students a year. So of the 3 sectors, from a head count perspective, we serve the most, but so many of those students are part-time students that are working, and community colleges are unique in that we serve some, traditional high school students that are coming out of high school. They're 18 years old. We have some students that come to us for technical applied programs. For my money, I tell people whose kids are about to go to community college, go to healthcare. Yeah. It's the most, for our overarchingly, there, we have a couple of exceptions, but it's the best employment outcomes for a community college student. Anything tech, so like an MRI tech or a surge tech or a dental hygienist, or those sort of supportive roles in the healthcare, allied healthcare fields, are all community college graduates. And for my money, that's what you should do. And then we have a lot of students that come to us as a more affordable, close to home option with every aspiration of transferring to a 4-year institution. So we've worked a lot on transfer policy. We serve a ton of dual enrollment students that are not yet graduated high school.
Right.
And then we serve a ton of adult students through our state program called Michigan Reconnect, which makes community college tuition free for adults 25 and older.
And community college is open enrollment, right?
Open access. So there's no admissions criteria.
We still have placement tests for something, right?
We've largely moved away from that as a field for good reason. Their data showed that those placement tests are not particularly predictive of a student's ability to succeed. Things like high school GPA, and sort of other markers of success, momentum that you've built throughout your life are much. So we've mostly moved away from placement testing, and instead have figured out a way to offer our gateway courses, our 100 level courses, with sort of differing levels of support. So the same 100 level content, but maybe a student is super ready and just can take the course and pass the course. Then there's a lot other students that will need additional tutoring or supplemental instruction in order to pass the course. But we've largely done away with developmental education, remedial education, which is like a dead end.
I think the nursing program still has some very good.
Yeah, we have only a couple of sort of competitive admission programs, and nursing is one of them where you have to sort of apply to get into the program. So that's always a struggle that we have is. Frankly, some of it's clinical placements, like partnering with our hospitals, because it is so heavily regulated. Students in healthcare professions need to be able to do clinical, the hands-on work, which, thank God, I'm really glad that students do, but it's really hard logistically. But then also instructors. One of the huge reasons why we can't pump out more nurses and more individuals in healthcare fields is because we can't pay instructors well enough to leave the field. They make a lot more money just being a nurse than being a professor of nursing at a community college.
What keeps you up at night besides your child and
No, they're fine. I would say, I think
work-wise? What do you worry about?
Well, I don't know. I'm like a politics junkie, so I'm excited about the elections, but I will not say that I am excited for this governor to go, because she has been like really incredibly consistent on supporting college, higher education generally, but specifically college affordability. So one thing that keeps me up at night is we have made massive progress over the last 7 years on making college exceptionally affordable. So we have the community college guarantee. If you graduate high school and go to school full-time at a community college, tuition free. Reconnect, you're 25 and older, going to college part-time or full-time, tuition free. The Michigan Achievement Scholarship, which provides $5,500 a year for up to 5 years to go to a university, 7 out of 10 families qualify. So we have made massive investments in lowering the cost of college to students and families. And what keeps me up at night is, will the next governor and the next legislature sustain those investments and commitments, which have all been done, again, through a very bipartisan way. The Michigan Reconnect was introduced by Republican Ben Frederick in the House and Republican Ken Horn in the Senate. The Michigan Achievement Scholarship was completely driven by Senate Republicans when they were in the majority. And so these aren't, so the governor's been consistent in terms of her support and kind of the bully pulpit, but these are changes that really Republicans led. And so what keeps me up at night is like, are they going to pull back
How long can
these
it be
commitments?
the pet teacher, the favorite?
Always.
right?
Yeah. Always till the day I retire.
How long can community colleges be?
She's leading with warmth.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
No,
How long can community colleges be the teacher's pet?
as long as I'm in this job.
Right, good for
I can
you.
guarantee.
Because that's
I can
yours.
guarantee
That's sort
you.
of a knock on you as a trustee, right? Is like,
I don't take it that way. I mean, I think they're very complementary systems. And, the University of Michigan sits in a different place in higher education as far as where community colleges are. And, there's a continuum of post-secondary education.
tell me about your clients at Acuitas.
Acuitas, yeah. I mean, we represent everybody from the largest Fortune 500 companies, the largest company in the world, and Amazon, to the Dental Hygienists Association and everything in between. So, from day to day, we might be worried about, big macro business issues, or we might be worried about licensure for the interior designers or something like that. So it's a very wide variety. It takes us across both sides of the aisle and in and out of, everybody.
Is there any better feeling than when somebody like Amazon or name the company says, I need you to represent up?
It's a great feeling. Yeah, closing the deal is always great. But I will say one thing I find very rewarding about lobbying and advocacy is when you can deliver for your clients. And that's one thing that budget time really provides an opportunity for, because you can see in black and white, my client went in there for $20 million, and guess what? The legislature decided to grant them that opportunity, whether it's, a grant, an earmark, a legislative directed spending item, whatever it is. That's a place that we really like to excel.
And what keeps you up at night that you worry about?
It's not my day job that keeps me up
Really?
at night. It's my volunteer job at the University of Michigan that keeps me up at night.
Why?
And I'm going to go to a dark place right now, but what I really worry about is active shooters on
Yeah.
campus and the safety and security of our campus, and the fact that education is very much an open campus opportunity. We saw it happen here at Michigan State. I worry about that a lot, and I spend a lot of time in my role as a regent advocating for more safety and security on our campus.
Yeah, that was sort of a issue that I took up at LCC, and I happened to walk Columbia University when we were in New York, and they said they had, and you probably have this now at Michigan, but this would have been 8 or 10 years ago, they had facial recognition on every camera, and if somebody walked around, they could see everything that person did. I mean, it was.
I don't want to get into it, but I would say the University of Michigan is not that advanced, and that's why it keeps me.
It's a hard thing, and quite frankly, we spent a decent amount of money. I said, just bring
Andrew,
LCC. I said, just bring
For the
proposals. We'll adopt them all. We'll adopt them all.
Yeah. I mean, we value having an open society, having an open campus, having students be able to just walk into a building or walk into their dorm without having to show an ID or whatever. We want to keep that, and we need to enable technology to allow us to keep that. It can't be because we've locked everything down. But should we need to lock things down? We need to be able to do it.
It's a super complicated job, right?
Yeah, there's
Being a region.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's an $18 billion budget. We have a $22 billion endowment. We have over 50,000 students, over 50,000 employees. We have campuses in Ann Arbor, Flint, and Dearborn. We have buildings in Detroit and Lansing, and
And at one
you know,
point,
leases.
protesters in your yard.
Yeah, I had protesters in my yard in Okemos. I've been chased on campus leaving meetings. I've been doxxed online. You know, you got to be tough for these jobs. People thought that becoming a regent at the University of Michigan was a great gig for football tickets. And don't get me wrong, I have the best football tickets. And I love football and basketball and hockey. I just spent the weekend in Chicago but for basketball. But it's a lot more than that.
But
and
it's
very serious.
it's super important.
It's super important.
You
We're
know,
one of the best universities in the world. And, you know, I don't want to screw it up.
and
I want
it
to
must be,
maintain that
and it
standing.
must. I don't want to dwell on the whole active shooting thing because it just, you know, you just don't want to trigger anybody. But it must be harder because your campus is unlike Michigan State. It's in the city.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like it's a different kind of animal to control.
More integrated,
Right.
definitely. But it's also just there's a history and a culture of openness there, of privacy in a way, of not having cameras, of having protests that can be done basically anonymously, and of having significant student protests and activism on our campus. That is part of our legacy. And we don't want to dissuade that. We want students to learn how to be leaders in their community. And protesting can be one of those things, and making your voice heard and building alliances with other people. But they need to do it in a way that doesn't infringe on the free speech of others. So we work a lot on that and making sure that our students have that ability, but don't disrupt classes for others, and don't disrupt learning, and don't disrupt events and things.
What do you think of Spartan Ventures?
Hey, you know, MSU has a board just like the University of Michigan, and I'm sure they're making good decisions.
I mean,
I don't really know that much about it.
I mean, the context of it is, you know, although Michigan is a lot bigger than its athletic department, 90% of Michigan residents have no involvement with the University of Michigan other than to watch the athletic, right?
Sure.
And that's clearly changed over the last 5 years or something,
Yeah.
4 years, 2022, Mary.
I've taken a strong interest in the future of college athletics. I think it's a uniquely American thing that is worth preserving, and we are on the precipice of losing that right now. And unless we have some action from Congress and some action from our community, however you want to define that, we are going to end up just being another level of professional sports. We may be already, but there needs to be a way to preserve women's sports, to preserve Olympic sports, and just more broadly preserve college athletics. We already have an NFL. We don't need a mini NFL. We need college athletics. We need to put the student back in student athlete while still compensating those students for everything they're doing for the university and what we're doing with them to you know, strengthen that brand globally. It's something I think is really important. I've been spending a lot of time talking to members of Congress and others, peers around the country, peers that are at a similar level of athletics and academics and size and scale as the University of Michigan, and we need to pull together and really find the solutions to this. Right now, we're just kind of leaving it in the hands of our friends in D.C., and they need our leadership.
We might do.
She's going to go ahead
yeah.
and drop re-elect Sarah Hubbard in the chat.
The invisible hand, Adam Smith, right?
I mean, I love the free market. I'm a Republican. I am the biggest fan of it. But what we have right now is not exactly that. It's a market that's not working with strong information. It's, you know, and it's forgetting that for the most part, these are public universities. These aren't private businesses. You know, sure, if we were the NFL or we were the MLB or something, having that free market discussion would make more sense, but we're government. The University of Michigan is government. We're a public university. So is Michigan State, and so are most colleges. We're not the free market. We can't go out and make money in a profit-seeking way off of our athletes to reinvest to, like, for instance, pay board members. I serve without compensation. I get some great football tickets, but I don't get paid. If my guys make more money on the football field, I don't get paid more. And neither do our administrators.
It's a complicated dynamic issue that probably, you know, was wrong the way it was, and is maybe wrong, although I'm on record saying pay them as much as we can get.
Yeah, that's fine. Like, I think it's important to have a lot of different views in this, and I think at some point, if we do continue as we are without Congress making changes, which is totally possible, and it is just that, at what point do we hit that level where it's no longer sustainable that we can go up millions and millions of dollars every year for the top quarterback in the country, which is where we're at right now. I mean,
Where you guys are.
When do donors stop donating for those short-term things?
A long time ago.
Yeah, right.
A long time ago.
Exactly.
Lindsay, you were with BLM, but
Yes.
and tell me what kind of companies were associated with
The
with
Fortune
it
500s.
all throughout the state of Michigan.
Mhm.
And you're currently taking a
Would you
sabbatical.
like to know?
What keeps you up at night?
I mean, I literally was dreamed I was chased by like a giant crocodile last night.
That'll do it.
I'm trying to nail that down. But I tend to be a bit philosophical and ruminate on. I'm my own type of spiraling thoughts. Deidre's are more about germs and survivalism. But I think populism. Did I say that right? Populism?
Yeah.
Why does it sound
That's a thing.
weird?
Yeah, populism.
Populism. I think it was in response to something for a time, which was politicians kind of talking over people and people not feeling heard, people's lives feeling hard or changing and not feeling like the people in control were like even paying any attention. And unfortunately, I think now it's becoming a proactive strategy where we're kind of mining for things that unite people, typically around anger, and often with the truth, take it or leave it. And so I just sort of wonder where we end up. The parties are philosophically, who knows anymore, because populism and kind of the pitchforking, et cetera, has kind of made a lot of these philosophical lines like disappear. But that's fine. But what are we chasing, and then what are we left with? Concerns me, and I think ultimately, like our culture is troubling, and to me, those things interplay. But that's not helpful.
Yeah.
That's like. But you asked me what I.
What are you worried about?
With our unique lens into this work and how it gets done and how it's different or harder or easier to do certain things. Where we're headed with all this. It's been a tough thing to wrestle down. Like, how do we get across that? Like, we're going to actually pay more if we don't do this thing now, or like people don't want to hear it. But then it's like, well, where are we? What's next? I'm promoting you a lot today. I'm not. I don't like owe her any money or anything. But I wanted to say, because you were very much on your U of M hat,
Yes.
stage, whatever. Those of us who've been friends with Sarah for a while, it's been fun to watch because she kind of, this could be its own episode, but she kind of threw her name in, and it wasn't like you'd been on a 20-year march to be this, and she kind of threw her name in a year that was weird, and Deidre and I are on a text thread, and it was like days later, like, Sarah, are you the Regents?
I won.
By the way, for a couple of days, it was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
She's like, I think I might be.
I think I won.
Yeah.
And then, we're
It
all
was
like,
close. Yeah.
and but it's fun to watch someone, your friend, do a really important job, but do it like really well. And then also, she's like doused in blue and gold all the time. Like, she's definitely leveled up the fashion brand around it. But we are all kind of like,
color, but they do.
And I'm someone that asks for tickets very rarely because I just don't care that much. But it's still fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a great opportunity for sure, and I've taken full advantage of it. And it takes all the time I'll give it.
Yeah.
So it's a great
I tell you,
institution.
when my son was I was senior in high school at Okemos. I always call Okemos the great private school.
My son goes to Okemos. Thank you.
And he was getting ready. He was young. We had advanced him, and he was going to go to Stanford and look. And I said, look, you can go to Stanford, you can go to Yale, whatever. You're not going to those schools. I said, you're only 16, you'll be 17. I said, I'm not flying out to California, but he got into Michigan. And I said, why don't you just go to Michigan State? I mean, they're basically the same. They're right here. You have a problem. It's right here. It's right here. It's completely different once you're on campus, even though you've grown up here. And he said, listen, I'm going to go to Michigan. I'm going to be an engineer, which in today's day and age, it's different. Engineering is computer science. So, and my starting job will be worth $20,000 more at Michigan than it will be at Michigan State. And I'm going to pay for it myself. And I said, well, I guess if you're going to pay for it yourself. And he did. He went to Michigan. He graduated on time and got a great job with Palantir. And he got a bunch of stock. And he left Palantir now. And he's, so he's done really well.
He's retired.
He's
I was like,
well.
please tell me he kept some of the Palantir
He
stocks.
did. He did. He's done really well. So he's my U of M graduate. But this has done amazing. We could have maybe done another hour, but Charlie's got
Batteries.
hell yeah. I hope. I
This
mean,
is
if
a
there's
hostile takeover.
anything,
We're all hosting.
is there anything
Yeah.
else that we didn't cover that you want to get?
I want to thank you for having us. Really appreciate the opportunity. And
I could have done a one-on-one with each one of you guys. It really, there's no question why you're risen to a level that you've risen to. I mean, very smart and articulate and amazing powerhouses, I hate to say that you're not as promoted as much as you should be in this community. We hear of the same people, the same names all the time, but you guys really can get it done. And it's obvious sitting at the table with you.
Well, now that we've done this, I'm pretty sure everybody's going to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
12 followers.
Yeah.
12 followers or something.
Please watch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
good job.
you.